Our presentation today will be talking about the Trump administration / conservatives versus transgender military troops.
Hello, this is Isabella, and I will be discussing the setting and the historical context of our topic. People are afraid of what is deemed to be different. We are all wary of the unknown in the world. Some do not like to accept the quote-unquote abnormalities of the world, so they turn to controlling the environment and the people, blocking the progression of our society. A current and notable instance of this type of behavior is Trump versus transgender militants in America. On April 12, 2019, Trump finally issues his ban on trans people serving in the military. This has only increased the tension in the country, making the conflict almost never-ending. But before we get into the details of the situation, let's start with the historical background of this issue. In 1952, Christine Jorgensen, pictured on the right, was the first American to become transgender. She received the operation in Denmark and advocated afterwards. She is very interesting too because she was also a former Army private. On June 6, 1993, Bill Clinton coined the phrase, "Don't ask, don't speak." This means that those who identify as LGBT can continue to fight as long as they do not reveal their sexual orientation. Additionally, Clinton worked to stop having these people being booted out of the military. The bill got signed about 5 months later and was effective in February of next year. However, when Obama came into office, things changed. On February 28, 2011, he wanted to repeal the bill. After months of negotiation, it officially ends in September of that year. There was not much that happened in 2012 and 2013 in respect to the transgender law. But on May 11, 2014, Chuck Hagel, the Defense Secretary for the United States, stated to check the ban every so often. The conversation of trans people in the military became more prevalent in 2015. Since the law was repealed, the military continued to get rid of soldiers who identified as transgender because they do not meet the expectations. This now became the job of the Assistant Secretary of the Army, as opposed to the commanders. Another change happened on June 5th. The commander can only refuse someone who has gender dysphoria, which is classified as the struggle one has with choosing their identity, if it affects their work. Throughout all of this, many trans people who served in the military became more open about their identity. For example, on April 9th, Sergeant Shane Ortega reveals that he fought in a war as a woman and then another one as a man. Jamie Lee Henry, who is pictured on the left, is an Army officer who came out as transgender and works as a medical corps. This was a very open and inspirational time. On July 13th, the Pentagon started to allow transgender people back into the military. Even Defense Secretary Ash Carter called the bill outdated. Another person with great influence who commented on the topic was Joe Biden. He said, "When I said, and I wasn't making a profound statement, I said transgender equality is the civil rights issue of our time. It took the sector of defense 10 minutes in July 2015 to say transgender people are able to serve. Ash Carter is a decent man and said all Americans who are qualified to serve physically should be able to serve." On May 16, 2016, an experiment discovered that allowing trans people in the military does not cost a lot, and it doesn't impact the person's and the group's abilities. On June 14th, Trump gets into the picture. Ironically, he states that he will fight for the LGBT community. Then, on October 1st, an announcement was made that said that trans people could get medical treatment and change their identity. Despite all of the good news that has been happening, on May 26th, a loophole to the DoD bill was found. The October announcement only applies to the current military people, not up-and-coming ones. To have a whole new review of the situation, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis gives military officials a time span of 6 months to decide upon the status of trans people in the military in June of 2017. And finally, on July 26, 2017, Trump decides to ban the trans people from the military. It is interesting to see the back and forth of this issue. There would be months of progression, but then it turns into a state of questioning. It is clear that this is a very serious and conflicting issue that is present in the U.S., or else why would it take so long to decide upon the fate of trans people in the military?
This is Cameron. The root cause of our issue is that the government claims that it is essentially a waste of money to have transgender people in the military because they often require medication, therapy, and surgeries. Over 1,000 U.S. military troops have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, meaning the gender they were assigned at birth does not match their own feelings about expressing themselves. There are around 2 million military personnel in the U.S., meaning that transgender individuals only make up a tiny portion of them. It is only known how many members have come out and sought treatment relating to their gender dysphoria, but there are most likely more who have kept it a secret for various reasons. July of 2017 was when President Trump first tweeted about his plan to ban transgender people from the military. This ban reached the Supreme Court by January 2018, and a modified version of it was in place while the main case continued. Many of the nation's biggest associations relating to healthcare recognize gender dysphoria and agree that it is wrong to exclude those individuals from the armed forces. About $8 million were spent on the healthcare needs specific to transgender individuals in the military from 2016 to 2017. About $2 million of that was spent on various gender reassignment surgeries and almost $6 million on therapy sessions. Some was also used for hormone medications. With the U.S. government's budget being around $716 billion per year, with $50 billion going towards healthcare, this $8 million towards transgender people is essentially microscopic in retrospect. Additionally, it is not as if transgender people are joining the military specifically to get these treatments for free, but they are active members who just happen to have gender dysphoria. This information is very saddening because there are so many things that take up money from the healthcare budget, so targeting transgender people is very unfair. The government could easily save much more money by banning erectile dysfunction medications or something that takes up a larger portion of the budget. But it is extremely prejudiced to target a group which already goes through plenty of hardships being an outsider in the first place.
This is Shannon, and I will be talking about the point of view of the Trump administration and conservatives. In the eyes of the Trump administration, the transgender community, as well as the LGBTQ+ community in general, inhibits the work of the military and will affect the effectiveness of the troops around them. Although transgender people have served openly in the United States military since 2016, Trump's administration states that letting transgender troops serve poses too great a risk for military effectiveness and lethality. Yet there is no factual evidence to back this up. In fact, many military chiefs, former surgeons generals, and a government-commissioned study have all contradicted the points made by the administration, showing that these fears should not be validated. The justices also provided no explanation for the decision, and Trump uses his ability to manipulate the public into thinking that transgender troops are somehow less than other U.S. troops. Another point made by them as to why they believe trans troops shouldn't serve is that the cost for their treatment would add up, therefore affecting the cost of the U.S. military. Therefore, the ban states that trans troops can serve as long as they stay the biological gender they were born as. This has also been proven wrong, as the cost for their treatment is minuscule when looking at the bigger picture. Both issues proposed by the Trump administration are not backed up by factual evidence, and their point of view should be taken into consideration when understanding why forgiveness and reconciliation would be so difficult for these two very strong-minded groups. Now I will be talking about the point of view of trans military troops. For transgender military troops, this ban was a hard blow to their humanity. This was a complete reversal of the decision put into place by President Obama in 2016. And even in 2019, Americans in every state show a strong disapproval of the Trump administration's ban. They feel they are being forced into a false identity, that they are being punished for their honesty and openness towards who they are. During this difficult time for trans troops, they must choose whether to keep their identity closeted so that they can serve our country, or be kicked out of their job as a troop and live as themselves. This ban is causing them to relive their childhood experiences of oppression and judgment from those who don't understand what it means to be transgender. Now, the military may be less capable of being the best version of themselves because of distrust and lack of honesty, as well as ridding our military of some of the best troops. The fact that many conservatives praise Trump for these actions is also very difficult for the trans community because they face so much discrimination and bullying from a large part of society.
This is Cameron again. For our specific event, we chose the scandal involving Chelsea Manning about 5 years ago. Chelsea Manning is one of the most well-known transgender women to have served in the U.S. military. Although she was involved in a scandal where she leaked important documents, she has been influential in the transgender movement. In 2013, she filed a lawsuit claiming that she was denied access to the treatment required for her gender dysphoria. After some speculation, the government agreed that she could undergo the hormone therapy that she desired. Although she was allowed to start hormones as a part of her treatment, she was told that she could not grow her hair long like the other female prisoners. This shows that the government and the military still did not accept that she was a woman. Additionally, her hormone treatment took a while to get started, impacting her mental health since she was not able to express herself how she pleased. Eventually, a judge in Kansas granted that she could change her name to Chelsea, but she was also found guilty of almost all charges against her. Nonetheless, she was influential in the transgender movement and demonstrated that there is still a lot of hidden discrimination in the U.S. military policies. President Obama made a huge step forward by passing a bill against discrimination while he was in office. But Trump's plans now want to erase that law and replenish the hardships against transgender armed force members.
It's Itai, and I'll be talking about the efforts to reconcile. One of the actions that was recently taken in efforts to reconcile was New Jersey joining sister states to allow transgender individuals to continue to serve in the National Guard. On Monday, May 4th, 2019, New Jersey announced it would be joining Nevada, Washington State, Oregon, California, and New Mexico in efforts to allow transgender to continue to serve in the National Guard. These sister states would be going against Trump's recent ban, which wouldn't allow transgender to serve in the military beginning of 2020 school year. There was also another act, the Charlie Morgan Military Spouses Equal Treatment of 2013. This act would allow for legally married same-sex spouses of service members to veteran benefits. Another act that is still in Congress today is the Restore Honor to Service Members Act. Often, veterans don't receive an honorable discharge because of their sexual orientation. This often means that they can't get federal benefits for their military service, and it would make it harder for them to find employment. This act would allow veterans who are not discharged honorably to upgrade to honorable discharge. Currently, one of the efforts that should be taken by the side of the federal government is by allowing federal individuals to serve in the military. Thank you.
This is Shannon, and now I will be talking about the status of conflict. This year, the conflict continues to be a very prevalent issue in the United States, especially since the ban went into place. Majority of Americans do not support this ban, and some conservatives don't agree with it as well. Some conservatives are, in fact, in the LGBTQ+ community themselves, and don't condone action taken against their own community. Many of them think that trans people deserve the same rights as any other U.S. citizen, thus proving that not all conservatives are for the discrimination of the transgender community. Currently, supporters of the LGBTQ+ community and trans community continue to protest this issue and try their best to spread awareness about the detrimental and emotional effect it has on this community. Trump and other conservatives continue to try to defy these protests by saying how transgender troops will only inhibit the effectiveness of the U.S. military. The future is uncertain for how the transgender community and conservatives will communicate on this issue, but there is hope in store.
Hey, it's me, Itai again. For our last slide, I'll be talking about group-to-group therapy. We said that for both groups to reconcile, there must be communication between conservatives and current presidents and the LGBTQ community. Conservatives and our president need to understand that everybody is different in their own ways and that the LGBTQ community has the same rights as any other person and that they shouldn't be denied any rights just because of their sexual orientation. Secondly, we said that each group shouldn't completely change their beliefs, but they should come to compromise. There should be a compromise that allows for both groups to come to an agreement in which they're happy with. Third, we said that it takes time. We don't expect both groups to reconcile quick, but we would like action to be taken by the federal government to allow transgender to serve in the military and have the same rights as any other member. By the end, both groups should be able to accept each other's differences and respect them as well. Connecting it to the class, we would recommend Manager's Way of Forgiveness for the LGBTQ community and Tutu's Way of Forgiveness to the conservative and our president's side. Thanks for listening. Thank you.